Hello watch enthusiasts. Now today I have a review of a watch which was very kindly sent to me by Reverie, and this is a brand which produces elegant and quite simplistic watches, minimalistic watches, and this particular model is the Classic. Now as you know, last week I reviewed a beautiful Dan Henry, but this week I have a different watch to show you, and though I'm sent a great number of watches, most of which I end up not reviewing on the basis they're not high enough quality for review, and that I don't feel that they're really particularly good value. Whereas here, like last week's Dan Henry, I do feel this watch is extremely good value and would personally recommend to someone. Therefore, I feel this watch is very much worth consideration. Now, before I begin this review, I would like to say a couple of things. The first of which is that for these reviews, I really am not paid to do the review. These reviews really are done because I feel this particular product is good value, and is a particularly interesting product compared to other models on the market offered by other brands. So this really isn't a sponsored review per se. I haven't been paid to do the review. I've merely been offered the chance to review a watch, and this is one of the few that do get through onto the channel. So I hope you'll share my judgment of the fact this watch is rather good value considering what it offers for the price it offers it for. Now, the second thing is to say that I will have a few watches to review in these next coming weeks, but things will return back to normal rather soon. I simply am somewhat inundated with a great deal of brands that want to be featured, of which very few are actually going to be featured. But there are quite a few, including watches I've bought for myself, which I think you'll also find interesting. It's quite a controversial piece from a very small brand, but I'll let you give me your ideas of what you think that is in the comments down below. So without any further ado, this watch comes presented in a simple leatherette box. It's a form of travel case, really. It has these curved edges and a simple popper here to keep it shut. Now it's not hinged. It's simply a single piece of leatherette to keep the whole piece together, and this does allow for an interesting perspective, I suppose, on the concept of a travel box. Or travel case to be used on a daily basis, really, when moving around with a timepiece. Where usually we'd use a watch roll, this is rather an interesting option. Now, if one opens it, quite simply like so, inside there is the timepiece, and then the additional strap. So I'll just take this watch out of the box and then show you. So here is the watch itself. This is the Classic, a limited edition of 250 pieces. And it's a particular dress watch, which I found particularly interesting because of its design cues, being very different to other things on the market at this price. Now, at this price, one often finds either quite limited timepieces in terms of watches with this finishing. Now, I think the finishing of this watch is what really shines here. And in terms of the finishing here, we have a I apologise for the focus. It would appear my camera isn't dealing that well with this light box. Anyway, we have a 12mm thick case with a 47mm lug-to-lug distance, which means it's a very wearable size, while being quite large for a dress watch, but still being wearable with that short lug distance for pretty much everyone, because it has a slightly shorter lug distance than my Seiko 55 Fathoms, which is a fairly good judge of size, because that's a watch which can be worn by effectively anyone because of its proportions. Now, this watch has a primarily polished stainless steel case, 316L, with this rather beautifully engraved crown. It's an engraving where the engraving is actually extended above the surface rather than engraved in, which I personally prefer, simply because I find that this sort of finishing looks higher quality in general. And the crown is quite a large aspect of this watch, being very easy to turn. And this watch is manually wound as well as automatic, being a Miyota 820A movement inside this watch. Now, the dial, I think, is the part which has been most talked about on this watch. And this is a guilloche pattern style of white dial. And this really does follow what has been pointed out to me by the head of this brand, the manager of this brand, which is Shibui, which is a Japanese concept of a particular design. And if you look this up, there are aspects of this minimalistic yet quite elaborate design which does go into this timepiece. Now the dial also has these beautifully applied metal faceted indices at each hour, and these aren't loomed in any way, but they're merely there for aesthetics and to make the watch more legible in daylight. And these certainly do catch the light very beautifully along with that dial, and which what one finds often is that the light hits both and really does make this watch shine, if you will, in bright light. Now around this dial, framing it rather nicely, is this polished bezel, which I think breaks up the rounded aesthetic of the dial from that more cushion-shaped case. Now the hands on this watch are blued sword-style hands with a more classic aesthetic, I suppose hence the name of the watch, whereby the bottom of the hand is tapered to the centre of the dial, which I think breaks up the shape of the hands and does make them appear smaller on the dial, which certainly works to this watch's advantage. We also see a day-date indication over here, which I think is a practical feature for a modern dress watch like this watch. Now the rest of the case on this surface here has a sunburst brushing effect. Now I'm not sure if I can catch that in the light here, but you'll notice it does break up the edge of this, and I think a purely polished case would have looked too simple and really wouldn't have caught the eye quite like this one does. Now the dial is very simple in terms of writing. We simply have Reverie at the top, and then automatic at the bottom, simply stating the brand and the mechanism inside this watch. Now you'll notice it beats at 21,600 beats per hour, so that's 3 hertz or 6 ticks a second, and it certainly is a practical movement. It's a Miyota 820A, which I'll show you through the case back in just a moment. Now the crystal on this watch is a sapphire crystal. This isn't a coated crystal in any way. It's proper sapphire, and it's anti-reflective too. It's ever so slightly domed, very, very slightly domed, which means you get these nice distortions at extreme angles. But at any normal angle, the watch is perfectly legible as you might notice from the slightly purpley tint in the lights, when under these particular angles of light. It does have an anti-reflective coating, which is a nice thing to see at this price, and is quite rarely seen at this price too. Now, if we move over to the back of the watch, and I've just opened this deployant on the strap, which I'll show you in just a moment, and we see a very simply decorated Miyota movement. Now, this Miyota movement is by no means a beautiful movement, but it certainly is a workhorse of a movement. It's very easily serviced, which at this price point makes this watch very practical, I suppose, on the basis that a great deal of Swiss automatic movements at this price point in watches cost almost as much as the watch itself to service, making the watch not economical to own. Whereas in this case, the movement should be very inexpensive to service, meaning the watch should be able to be worth a certain amount for longer. Now we have a simple case back with a mineral crystal window to be able to see this movement, and you can see the movement has been decorated with some perlage along the breadth of the movement, and also it's been continued onto these various bridges up here. But what you will notice, it says 10 ATM because this watch is actually water resistant to 100 meters. Though it's a dress watch, this could be used as a daily watch, a daily wearer, due to its resilience. It doesn't have a screw-down crown, but you'll notice from the case back, when I wind it, you will notice this watch is manually wound as well as automatic, which is certainly a nice touch and a nice thing to see. Now, when I pull the crown out to the first position, one can adjust both the day and the date, but the time it doesn't hack. And that's one thing which I think would have been nice to see, though I do feel that the other aspects of this watch do compensate very nicely for this lack of a hacking function, such as the good value of the servicing of this movement. Now, the strap of this watch is actually there are two straps which come with this timepiece. There is a brown calf leather strap, which is rather nice, which I'll get onto in just a moment. But the strap the watch comes on with the deployant, though you can actually transfer the deployant onto the brown leather strap, is this alligator grain strap. Now, I must say this strap is excellent quality. That is something which stood out on this watch from the moment I opened the box. This strap certainly did stand out as being something of a very high quality piece, and is actually better quality than, for example, the strap on my Tissot, my little classic Tissot, which also has an alligator grain strap, but frankly it is nowhere near the quality of this strap, so that's certainly a plus for this timepiece. Now, this strap can't actually accept buckles and tangs, simply due to the fact that it doesn't have an opening here, but we do get a very nice deployant. Now, I've been wearing this watch for a while. I'm afraid I neglected to take off these stickers. I apologise. But it certainly does work very, very nicely. We have these polished sections here, and then brushed sections in the middle, and this is not a stock clasp. I've never seen a clasp like this before on any other watch, which is why I suspect this watch was made, this clasp even, was made specifically for this watch. And I certainly do appreciate that when a lot of over-the-counter pieces are used. Now, this is actually quite a nice design because, as you see, if I can simply focus it, I do apologise for the focus. There we are. It clips down, but it is actually spring-loaded, as you can see here, which means that it does pop open rather than simply undoing. So if it were to come undone during the day, you would notice because of the spring, I suppose. Now, when closed, it is a double butterfly style clasp, so it clips down rather nicely, and then is very deeply engraved with Reverie on here, which is again a fully polished system on the exterior. Now, in terms of sizing the bracelet, I think this is very nicely considered, because often with these one actually damages the strap when adjusting the size, and this is something I've found, for example, with my Tudor, and whereby there's simply a piece which goes down into the strap and nothing underneath, which means that it has to have a flared end, and which catches on the strap and can damage it when you're adjusting the strap. Here, there really isn't any of that, with a system like so, by which this pops out and then is hinged and clips back into place when you've finished adjusting the strap, which is certainly a very nice feature and something I wasn't expecting from this watch at this price point. Now, this is also leather lined with this rather soft cream leather on the inside. But as you can see, you simply adjust it to the position you want, and then clip this shut, and then the strap is sized, which does show a great deal of attention to detail with regards to what people want on their straps. So I'll just put this watch down and then show you the watch on the other leather strap, just to give a certain comparison. Now, the other strap that this watch comes on is a simple padded leather strap, which is a calf-style strap, and has a nice polished finish. Now, this is a much more simple strap than the alligator one, which is shown otherwise, but it's very nicely stitched with matching brown stitching to complement the strap. This chocolate strap rather nicely. Now, I think this does fit the watch well, but I personally find the black of the other strap suits the simple and minimalistic style of this watch better. Although that said, it's nice to see a brand include two straps, simply for the sake of variety. And as you can see, it's a very nice quality of leather. It really is above sort of things that I've seen from other brands, which is nice to see at this price point. The buckle is, again, very deeply engraved. Now, I will stress this engraving isn't the normal laser etching which one sees on these watches, but a much deeper type, and certainly does suit this watch well. Now, one thing I would like to point out is the fact that this watch does have quick release spring bars. Now, what is nice here is the fact that these spring bars are in fact standard size. Often what one finds with these spring bars on specific straps from watches is that the end of the spring bar is a particular size which doesn't fit other watches, whereas here the end of these spring bars is a very standard size and will fit pretty much any other watch nicely if you want to put this strap onto another timepiece, which does show that they really have considered this and thought it through at Reverie. And of course, it does simply reattach very easily, like so, and does go on very easily. So I'll just put this to one side, and then show you this watch on the wrist. Now, this is the watch on my 6.5-inch wrist, and you'll notice it fits very, very nicely. Now, also notice the anti-reflective coating on the crystal, but it does sit very nicely on the wrist. Those 22mm wide lugs don't extend over the edge of my wrist, and do allow for quite a comfortable wear. Now, at 12mm, it is remarkably tall, considering its thickness. But that's the reason why it gives that impression is the fact that the watch has flat sides. I haven't found any problem with fitting it under cuffs due to the stepped, as you can see, the stepped nature of the side of the watch, allowing a cuff to ride up over the top of it very easily, which is certainly an attractive and pleasant thing to see on a watch, which is at core, at heart, a dress watch. So it certainly does fit nicely, and the clasp is very comfortable on the wrist. Um, it really is, with that butterfly style of safety clasp. It does sit comfortably against the wrist rather than digging in, unlike some other less expensive clasps. So I certainly do think this watch is very good value for what it offers, and I thought it was a good idea to show it to you today, because this is a product I believe in. So I'll just take this off my wrist and conclude the review. Anyway, I'll conclude my video there, and my review of this timepiece. But to conclude this, I do think this watch is very good value, considering what it offers. Now, the movement is, I think, the most debatable thing about this watch. But I do understand why this movement was used, and as a consumer, having worn watches with this particular movement, I think the lower service prices are definitely worth the lack of hacking, and is certainly compensated for by the fact that this has a proper sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, and excellent finishing all round. So I shall conclude there, but thank you very much for watching, and do please like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed this video to help the channel, and see more content. So thank you very much for watching. This is I'm on the Watch Guy, over and out.